because we are not what we thought we were. We are not just flesh and bone having experiences of, walking on this planet as human beings. I believe we are spiritual beings having human experiences, and we're quantum biological beings. These bodies are devices, and they're designed for a massive transformation at the blink of an eye. So the things that we hold inside of ourselves, the things that lead to the triggers, the wounds and the sore spots that create triggers on both ends, as you've said, those things can be dealt with so quickly. At first, when I first started this work, it may take half an hour for me to move through something like that. A lot of breathing, a lot of tears, a lot of letting go. Now I can be driving down the highway and something triggers me that I hear on the radio, or someone beside me says something, and that trigger goes off, and within 3 breaths, it's gone forever. That is a magical life. That is what I'm interested in. I don't want to take 30 years to deal with something that takes 3 breaths. So that is...
I'm Dean Walker, and welcome to the Poetry of Predicament podcast, a podcast for people brave enough to face humanity's challenges and problems, and most importantly, our numerous predicaments. The Poetry of Predicament is a podcast meant to inspire us to bring forth grace, beauty, and connection with the web of life in the face of a predicament-laden world. What if we could use this virus-driven pause as an opportunity to transform ourselves, to take an evolutionary step forward? We may never have a pause like this again. Let's hear from facilitator and guide Deb Gleason. Welcome back to the Poetry of Predicament podcast. And I have the pleasure of speaking today with a guest I've recently had on for the first time or two, just recently. I have Deb Gleason that's going to be speaking with us today. And I'm really pleased that we're going to be having this conversation because I'm noticing in all the frenzy, we're talking in the last few days of March in 2020. And the world is absolutely consumed with dealing with the coronavirus and all of its iterations around the planet. As if it weren't enough, all that is occurring on top of what is truly still an existential concern of a number of different environmental, political, social, cultural issues that are really just shoving us right up to the brink of collapse of Earth and human systems. And I might add, human-caused collapse of Earth and human systems. And so when I get to have a conversation with someone like Deb, and if you're watching this podcast on any kind of regular basis, you're used to, particularly in 2019, I just really had a focus on wanting to speak with people who have something to say about, if not the business as usual way of doing things, if not being immersed in that from birth, as we all have been, if not this existential level, ecocidal and virtually suicidal track that business as usual is on, then what? And there are surprisingly few people that really have anything to say about that, especially on the individual level. There are a few philosophers, there are a few large-scale pundits that might have some ideas about things like, Charles Eisenstein is renowned for his, there's this more beautiful world we all know is possible. So there are precious few people who have anything other than sort of a magical thinking, or have a desire, or as Derek Jensen might say, hope is really the desire for something over which we have no agency. And that's the majority of how the world operates, is that level of hope and at that level of magical thinking. So what I'm really excited to speak with Deb about today is that she indeed has something to say. I've been able to do some personal version of the work she's taken on with her over the past few weeks, and I before that have been in extensive conversations with Louise Lebrun and Deb Ozarko and Naomi Irons, and on the list goes. What Deb has going on is that she's wanting to make this work more available. And particularly, perfect timing, I might add, she wants to be able to do that in an online setting, which has not been done before at any kind of scale. And so I'm very excited to hear what her plans are about that. And I can speak personally that she, through her commitment to expanding this work, it's now going to be available for males of the species. Here I am being perhaps the first, I'm not sure. It's an extraordinary time with the other large scale exemplars that I've spoken with in this past year from other bodies of work. This I would consider the cutting edge of the well systems work that we've talked about with so many other representatives. And Deb, just, in full disclosure, I just want to thank you for all you've reached out to me to include me in your ramp up of this work. It's really been a pleasure, and I just know it will be remarkably important for the people that take it on. So Deb Gleason, enough of my rambling on. I'm so glad to have you here. And is there anything that I have said in this introduction that you'd like to take a different way or say a different way? And let me get your picture back up here. Hang on just a second. And there you go.
Wow, Dean, it's so nice to be back with you on your Poetry of Predicament podcast. It's I had such a good time speaking with you last time when we sort of briefly started down the road of what I have chosen for myself in the last number of years and how it's changed my life. And what I'm very clear about now is everything I've done in the last 5 years or so through the Well Systems framework has prepared me for this moment in time. We're at a very interesting place right now where we are literally watching all of the systems that have been designed to support us, to support human existence on this planet. We're watching them all fold themselves up. I mean, it's not maybe the collapse of the planetary systems and everything else that probably is yet to come. It's our own systems, the ones that we built with our own hands and our own minds, that are suddenly all closed. With the exception of essential services, there is nothing open in any of the communities that we're all living in. And so it's this dramatically interesting time in our lives, a once in a lifetime so far experience, where we get to find out if those systems were ever working for us, what they were doing for us, what they weren't doing for us. I have a lot of friends who have children who are now out of school indefinitely. And I'm hearing so much about the joy that their days are now filled with when they are home, working from home, and their kids are home, and their kids are eating properly. They're eating on a schedule that works. They're sleeping properly. There's no alarm clocks going off in the morning to disturb them. They're resting, they're playing, they're living lives that are meaningful together. These parents are watching their kids just rise up in ways they didn't ever expect. And I think it's the same for everyone who's taking this pause in the cultural narrative to look within and find out what are the things that work. And on the other side of that, looking at what are the things that have not been working for us. So as we fold up everything that we thought was supporting us, what do we see when we look out there and notice what we don't need anymore, what was actually exhausting us, what was taking from our life as opposed to what we thought was filling our life. Where have the things been that have been distracting us from what really matters? And so I think you and I are having this conversation in the thick of a moment where we all are stopping. It's not just one country. It's not just one state or one province. It's the entire planet. We're in a dramatic pause where we suddenly get to take a breath and feel into what it is that we want for ourselves. What kind of life do we actually really want to live? So, Dean, I think we find ourselves in this almost exquisite moment of an opportunity to look inside and see if things that we have built, see if the things we've been buying into, see if the things that were almost invisible to us, these systems that we've said yes to see if they actually work for us, to see if there are parts of them that are no longer appealing and no longer serving us. It's this amazing moment of moving from the external and back into the internal. All of us, no matter where we were raised, what country, with what religious system, with what political system that was around us, all of us have been subject to the same thing from birth, which is to let go of the internal voice, to let go of the internal messages, and to choose instead to be validated by the external. So we learn very early that our unique expression, if it doesn't match the culture, is not valid. And we start very early in our lives to tone ourselves down, to shrink ourselves into a model that gets us what we need from the external. And when we do that, we start losing ourselves bit by bit by bit. By the time we're 5 or 6 years old, there's probably very little of us that's left that's recognizable as the truth of who we were meant to be in this experience. So that external validation runs deep for all of us. And it starts in early family systems, and it continues on into our school and our work environments. It continues on into the way our culture treats us, the way we're taught to be with each other. I mean, it's a never-ending, when you start looking at it, a never-ending cycle of reduction of self in favor of the culture, the economy. I mean, we have designed our lives, and we have said yes to lives that serve the economy in such a tremendous fashion, and they do nothing but shrink us individually.
Yeah, and if I could, there's this stellar example of that going on right now, which is, I don't know how it's going on in Canada or anywhere else, but here in the States, there's literally a debate going on about the value of human life, especially elders who are particularly susceptible to the coronavirus, whether or not they should be treated in an adequate way, or if they should just be sacrificed so that the rest of the folks who are younger and more physically able should be able to re-engage in business as usual, get back to work, get going, and allow some percentage of the disposable people in this culture to just die off. So I've never seen such a graphic example to the nth degree of what you're describing, of just how it looks when you've got a culture that's been doing this for generations, taking away a person's access to their own inner truth, their own inner discernment. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's so live for me right now that I just wanted to mention that.
Oh, it is such a good example. I mean, it says everything, doesn't it? I had a conversation with my mother yesterday. It was the first time I've heard of this, where she said in Italy, they're actually not treating anyone over 60. And so for her, the way that distills down in her mind is that she's expendable. If she gets this virus, she will die. And that's it. I mean, that's how that message comes down to someone who's a senior citizen at this point. I mean, and all of it because we want the economy to continue. We want the productive people to continue to work. I mean, you're right, it is an extraordinary example of spelling out loud the things that probably have been quite invisible to us. That is definitely a rich way of exposing a deep truth that is so ugly and yet so hidden. And I think that's what these times are all about. It's a time to expose those ugly hidden truths that we all carry. And the only way to do that is to let go of the external, and the external has let go of us. I mean, this virus has come along and shut down everything that we are familiar with. In this moment, I'm sitting in front of a Starbucks that is closed in the middle of the day. I mean, never in my life would I have imagined that a company like that would have closed all its locations. You know, so we're at a very precious moment where we get to decide, do I need to spend the $5 and the extra 10 minutes every day at Starbucks, you know, having my caffeine consumption be tailored exactly to what I believe it should be, or can I spend that time and money doing things that actually serve me? I mean, little examples, but when you start adding them all up and you start looking at everything we've built to support ourselves, it's becoming evident that we don't need the comforts that we thought we needed, that there's more to life than these these examples of abundance that are so outside of the abundance that we all require internally.
Yeah.
So again, to me, it's time to make the turn. It's time to make the turn back inside. And that turn has not been as accessible to us because we've been busy. We've been distracted. We're running, you know, from morning until night. We are blinded by sales at this particular store or events that we think we need to attend. We've been deeply distracted from ourselves. And this moment, we have a chance to stop all of that noise and look in to see what the wisdom is that's been awaiting us all along. I mean, we all have it, that small, quiet voice inside that leads you sometimes when you listen in the right direction. That's waiting for us. And I believe that the more we turn inward and the more we start listening to that voice, not only does it get louder and clearer and more easily accessible to us, but it begins to create the life that we were meant to live. It begins to separate us from the external world of noise and conflict and war and struggle. And it brings us right back into a world of gentle tenderness where the silence of moments become apparent, where instead of stacking goal after goal after goal on top of each other and finding that we never reach the end point, it gives us a chance to realize that it really always was about the moment, that each moment, each breath that we take is a moment for creating exactly the life we want. In fact, there are things that are going on that don't feel comfortable. It's still a moment to recognize ourselves in. And this goes back to the work I'm doing, the work you and I have been doing together, and that now that I'm offering out to the world. It's not all about joy and happiness and kittens and rainbows. Those are lovely things, but it's about every moment that exists for us has something for us. There's genius in all of it. So coming back in, allowing ourselves to move into whatever is there, comfortable, uncomfortable, all of it, and find ourselves, find what it is that's been blocking us, find what the wounds are, step into them and release them so that more of us is available. I mean, this is the time for all of that. So there are many, many people, I believe, out there right now who are feeling isolated, alone, fear-filled. They're feeling unsure and unstable. And all of that, all of those sensations that are moving through them are all ways in to find out what exists in them that creates a lack of safety, what exists within them that creates a feeling of being destabilized, and owning those parts of themselves. And then when that stuff is owned, when that stuff is felt and it's moved through the body, so much more of ourselves becomes available. And then suddenly there's a feeling of peace. There's an understanding that this pause on the globe right now is actually a moment where the silence and the stillness is one of the most beautiful gifts possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think
Definitely.
every single moment has that in it. It has everything we need. We just were never trained to live in moments. We were trained to create these long-term goals for ourselves. Do well in school, get a degree, get a good job, stay in that good job, retire from that good job, have a pension,
Yeah.
on and on it goes. And it's all elusive.
If I may, I also noticed when I've been looking back at how we've been operating, we also have collectively mastered the skill of overriding any of the inner signals, any of what that stillness might want to offer us. We've, in the name of maintaining and driving the business as usual model forward, we've overridden all of these precious messages, these precious impulses, or sometimes we call them waves, that are coming through all the time anyway. But if we're overriding, we literally don't have access to them. And that's what I've been so excited to experience in all of my connections with you and Louise and all the other practitioners that I've had the pleasure of speaking with, but especially with you and me as you've been taking me through the various exercises and so on. There's this this preciousness, it literally just pausing to invite those waves. Does that spark you to say anything about that work?
Yeah. First, yeah, great stuff. And I think two things come to mind. One is, how ridiculous is it that all of those moments are available to us, all of those insights, all of those delicious waves of finding out more of who we are available to us, and we push them away in favor of business as usual so that we can continue to grow an economy that is absolutely decimating the only home that we have. I mean, it's a choice we're making. It's invisible to us because it's all we've ever known. And it is absolutely the most destructive thing we can do to ourselves, to the animals we share this planet with, to each other. I mean, it's the biggest lie, and it's so big. You know, sometimes when lies are so big, they become invisible. Well, this lie has been so big for so long and is suddenly and quickly and profoundly becoming visible. And I think it's just because we have this moment in time. And so the work that I've been doing through the Well Systems framework, and now that I'm offering to other people, is exactly this. It's, what are the lies we carry within ourselves? What are the places where we're not looking? And what happens when we start taking a closer look at those things? What's available to us when we start peeling away the things that seemed so meaningful and so right, but yet were not ours ever? They were messages, they were education, they were pieces that were almost forced upon us. They were ideas that were never ours, but we were led to believe were ours. What happens when we start peeling away all of that and we start finding out what's underneath? That's this work. That's what you and I have been doing together. That's what I've been doing for a while, and that's the journey I want to take others on, is what kind of absolutely majestic life force is available underneath all of the falsities that we have assumed were true for us. And that's, on a personal scale, what I think is possible. And I think as we each personally move into that space and start owning our lives for maybe the first time ever, we then have this incredible opportunity. You know, Dean, I haven't been hopeful about humanity's ability to turn the ship around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I sort of threw the word hope out of my vocabulary for a while. I'm actually kind of feeling a little hopeful right now. I'm feeling like as we all choose ourselves, or as many of us as have the courage to choose ourselves in this moment, there is a chance we could turn this around to at least have lives of full expression in this moment for as long as these moments continue. And I'm not fooling myself to think that Gaia isn't damaged beyond, recovery, or that she isn't damaged beyond repair and that recovery is possible. I think that we have a chance to live lives where we begin our recovery and where we live every moment to its fullest until those moments are no longer available. And that really excites me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, for as long as I've been in the facilitation or coaching or counseling domains, it always seemed like there were two parts to any intervention, whether it was me working on my own practices or working with someone else, working with a couple, working with an organization. It seemed like there were two elements. One was the pause, to find some way to make an inroad to stop or at least severely slow down the automaticity that's going on in the system, whether it's a system of a single person, a couple, a family, an organization. Something needs to intervene to allow for a stopping point. Sometimes a relationship is so strained that literally there's a break. There's stuckness. They just don't know where to go. So that's the slowing down or the stopping or the pause is really forced on the couple or individual and so on. And then there's the intervention. So if not how we've been living up till now, then how are we going to live? And that's the intervention where somehow a new way of operating needs to be made available, needs to come about somehow. And either it does or it doesn't. And it's then heard and integrated, or it's not. We all know that kind of track through any sort of counseling intervention and so on. What's exciting for me about what this work is and a number of the other kinds of work that I've had a chance to focus on in this last year in particular is there's this unpredictable, almost spontaneity in this process that you're describing. I know it's a little bit difficult for you to cover all the ground and describe everything about it. What I can say from my experience, my intro level experience with you is it's like a spontaneous combustion. On the one hand, is one metaphor or an analogy I would say about it. It happens so quickly when it happens. This insight or this unfolding, this emerging of a new possibility. And another way is the way we were just talking a few moments ago about inviting a wave. So I know it's a little bit like fire and water, and I'm mixing metaphors, but it really shows up for me with that kind of instant quality. And it also shows up for me, having grown up a surfer, I just have a love of, here comes the wave. There's this naturalness, this is emergence, and it is so powerful. There is no more powerful thing that I know of than the ocean and the waves. And it feels like that coming up through my system. So it kind of, I just wanted to spell out how it shows up for me. What you're describing is, and you were describing it on the global scale, and that's exactly how it seems to be showing up for me too. And I had lost the word hope from my lexicon a while back. And now at least I know we have been forced to a pause. We have a pause, and it will either be used by sober, clear adults who wish to grow into this, or it won't. So it's exciting. It's exciting is the shorthand for me to say what I've been trying to say as I look at what you're saying and see what I have experienced again at this introductory level. There's a spontaneity and a real excitement and a real blend with my love of the waves from a whole different side of life.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. It is a very exciting time. The pause has been, this virus it felt like it came out of nowhere. I know that's not true, but it landed fast, and the responses globally have been fast, and we have been forced into a pause without really too much warning, which is almost the jarring nature of that almost serves us, because we need to then, sit with that. It's not like we knew this was coming for a year when we started making plans and we, started buying toilet paper a year ago. We just all of a sudden all ended up in this position at once, all around the globe. And I think back to the work on the individual level that I'm offering now, it's about, you sign up for the program, that's the moment of pause, where you see that your life isn't working the way you want it to work, where you see that there's a glitch in your own matrix. That's the moment where you pause and you say, what else is out there? Once you sign up for, my expansion in a time of collapse program, you're already halfway there, because you've already recognized something isn't working and you want something more. Then the program, what it does is it uses the decloaking and living authentically material from Louise Lebrun's Well Systems work as an educational tool. So a way to look at why things haven't been working, look at what else is possible, in a life. And as you know well, listening to that material starts to move things in a person, starts to unlodge long-held beliefs, starts to break up concrete that has been potentially robbing us of living full lives. And we come back together once a week for 5 weeks on an online call to see what's there when that material has been absorbed and metabolized. And the conversations that come from listening to that material, those are the catalysts for absolute expansion. Those are the moments where we sit and listen to each other. We take in the offerings of others as almost equal or even sometimes more powerful fuel for our own change. Because when you're in a small group of people who are willing to be courageous and look at their lives, their story almost moves more in you than your own story, and vice versa. So this is what I love about small groups, is that we get a chance to hear other people's experiences and as they start moving things in us. And the work is all about sitting with whatever moves in you. And instead of pushing it down, medicating it, running away from it, we allow it to rise, and we allow ourselves to just feel into it, to just really, maybe for the first time ever, know that it even exists, that it even lives within us. And from that place of attention and focus and tenderness, it finally can move. It can leave us. It can create space for more of us to arrive. And you talk about the waves. I'm right with you there. Waves, ocean have always been profound for me. They've always been the place where I'm the most alive. And when we allow that concrete to break up and we allow those sensations to move, the wave, the who we are in the world, that wave can arrive and fill us in ways that are beyond expression. We get our lives back through the stepping into the discomfort, allowing it to move, and then opening for more of us to arrive. This is, I've said this to you on some of our calls. You may not know what happened. Something happened, but you may not know what it was until you go back out into your world. And suddenly something that would trigger you so easily in the past no longer triggers you. Somebody will say, your sister, your brother, your spouse will say something to you, and you sit there and you feel peaceful. And you start to notice, okay, that stuff is now not operating my life. It's no longer driving who I am. I have upgraded my own operating system. So the work in my program is about upgrading our operating systems and continuing to expand and expand into the more of who we are. And it's as simple as paying attention. It's as simple as a breath. And it's as complex as being curious, being courageous, and being willing. And if you've got curious, courageous, and willing on your side, all of this is possible. A massive, extraordinary life is possible when you step into those three things.
Mm. Yeah, I would like to just briefly mention that I come with a special kind of baggage in my world. I'm triggerable on both ends of things. I have triggering that has me become more volatile, more angry. Usually it's anger. That was my main trigger for most of my life. But I also have a triggering on the other end where I will suppress myself. I'll be triggered to withhold parts of my expression in order to somehow survive in the situation or whatever it is. And I've noticed that this work is equally useful on both ends of the spectrum for both of those particular kinds of triggers that I carry. And there is a particular ease. Like that's what I was trying to express with the kind of fire side of my mixed metaphor earlier, the spontaneity, how quickly that de-triggering can occur. It like the dissolving of that trigger can occur in such a ridiculously short period of time, and there's really not a process about it. I'm definitely been through my long history of process work. And what I'm remembering is that this, way more often than not, involved almost zero process, and really the elements that you were just talking about, curiosity and awareness and so on. So I just wanted to share that, just a little bit of testimony from a guy with triggers in a number of different directions, and all of them being able to be dissipated with amazing speed.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's the speed. I think we get trained that good things come through slow, hard work, and we all are aware of the therapy model. So I mean, therapists are doing amazing things in this world. Not about that. What this is about, the distinction that I want to make is that the therapy model, the talk model, where we go over and over and over the content, talk about the problems, talk about our parents, talk about whatever it is that we think is keeping us back. That's a slow, arduous journey. It will get us somewhere, but it will get us very little distance from where we want to be now in a very long time. So what may take 30 years in that model takes 3 seconds in the model I'm talking about, because we are not what we thought we were. We are not just flesh and bone having experiences of, walking on this planet as human beings. I believe we are spiritual beings having human experiences, and we're quantum biological beings. These bodies are devices, and they're designed for a massive transformation at the blink of an eye. So the things that we hold inside of ourselves, the things that lead to the triggers, the wounds and the sore spots that create triggers on both ends, as you've said, those things can be dealt with so quickly. At first, when I first started this work, it may take half an hour for me to move through something like that. A lot of breathing, a lot of tears, a lot of letting go. Now I can be driving down the highway and something triggers me that I hear on the radio, or someone beside me says something, and that trigger goes off, and within 3 breaths, it's gone forever. That is a magical life. That is what I'm interested in. I don't want to take 30 years to deal with something that takes 3 breaths. So that is the magic of the work that Louise LeBrun created with the Well Systems body of knowledge. And I'm telling you, it has changed my life, and in ways that I can't describe, and that move me so deeply that all I can think about is how can I bring this forward in the world through my filters, through my experience, so that I can continue her work in a way that is deeply meaningful to the people I come in contact with. So being at the beginning stages of this and having my experience of doing that with you and our calls, and now opening it up to small group programs, is an extremely exciting time for me.
Yeah. Well, Deb, it's really a pleasure, as far as I'm concerned, to have you here on this podcast and speaking about your work. I've had a very similar kind of a awakening point a few years ago, where I just saw the world is in an extraordinary condition, that we won't be able to save anything on a large scale. We won't be able to turn anything around. We've already passed the off ramps, from my view, for saving elements of the environment, of the climate, even elements of politics and nation states, and on the list goes. So really what I saw then is what I heard you just say now, that it's the time to bring our gifts to the miracle that is each of these moments that we have the privilege of living in. Like, there's no more important work to be done, as far as I can see, than the work of offering up our truth and our gifts to each other and to life in the precious moments that we have to be alive. And God knows, for an old guy like me, that's not too much longer. So it's even more precious. So I'm thrilled that you're offering what you're offering. And it's been a real pleasure to be a part of your, beta testing, if you will. I'm curious if you could say a little bit about how people get in touch. Of course, I'm going to be putting anything you'll share from here out into the show notes, so they'll have links to be able to follow, and perhaps you have some website information. So if you would just lay it out, how do we contact you? How do we find out more?
Thanks, Dean. You can head over to my website, which is debgleason.net, DEBGLEASON.net. And you'll see in the top menu, there's an experiences menu. Just click experiences, and one of the experiences that I'm offering this program is called Expansion in a Time of Collapse. So clicking on that link will take you to the page. There's more of a write-up on what you can expect. I've got the dates posted there. So I'm starting a small group with women on April 23rd of 2020. So that's coming up in just under a month. And a small group with men the following day, April 24th, 2020. So those groups will each run for 5 weeks. And part of it is that participants will need to purchase and download the Decloaking and Living Authentically audio material from Louise LeBurn's website, but the link is there, so people can go check it out. You can even head over to that link and listen to her first CD for free, so you can get a feel for what the educational material is like from her website. So the program is about downloading that material, listening to it week by week. So I send out a calendar of listening schedules, so people will know what to listen to before each call each week. And then we get together for 5 weeks and we discuss what comes up when people listen. And as I said earlier, it's a powerful, powerful tool for beginning deep and meaningful conversations. So right from the website there, you'll be able to sign up. And if you have any questions, there's a contact button and you can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to talk to you on email.
Okay, great. And I'm curious, if a person, for some reason or another, isn't able to participate in either of the two coming up in April, is there a way to stay in touch, kind of a newsletter or some way of being able to find out what future schedule will be?
Yeah, from that website as well, the debgleason.net website, there is a place to sign up for newsletters. And I definitely will keep people posted on future programs. And it's actually a good place to sign up anyway, because I'm in this prolific writing period right now where I seem to be writing a blog post every second day as the world changes around me. There's just a lot coming up for me. So I encourage people to sign up just to stay in tune with those posts as they come out as well.
Great. Well, I want to thank you again for including me in your process of evolving this next chapter of your expression out in the world. It's absolutely a pleasure, and it's such a good fit with what I'm wanting to do with this body of work in Living Resilience, which is to offer up all the best tools I can gather, and the ones that I come up with on my own as well, and to offer those out to people in terms of support and resources for facing a world that's really suffering under the weight of human-caused collapse of Earth and human systems. And we just happen to be in the time of the most magical pause, weeks and weeks long, maybe longer than that long pause. And what better thing to do with our time than to build these skills and capacities? Yeah.
Right on. Yes. Thank you, Dean, for collecting all of these resources and sharing yourself at this time. You are a great invitation for others in this moment. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you next time. Deb, have it be great.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Take care, Dean.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Poetry of Predicament podcast, produced by Dean Walker and the Living Resilience Alliance, www.livingresilience.net. Music today from Michael Hedges, as always, and also Port Blue Into the Sea. Also available on our website, www.livingresilience.net, is a wide array of articles, online learning series, arranging group and individual resilience coaching,
and sign up for our now weekly support gatherings online that we call Safe Circle.